I am Scott Beasley, the chair of the Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities, and we really appreciate your time being here for the annual education event. We've got a busy lineup for you tonight. We are gonna start with the usual monthly reminders, move on to an update from the Fire Safe Council, and then a reason I believe a lot of you are here, we have a debrief from the River Fire and Bennett Fire, featuring everyone involved from fire and law. And then we'll move on to the our monthly spotlight, which is that annual community education event moderated by our own Susan Rogers and Virginia Gompertz from the steering committee. So we'll hit up the dashboard in Zonehaven with Paul Cummings from the Office of Emergency Services, review the coalition website resources, and then 3 different video pieces from Chief Matt Wallen, retired firefighter Kress Reilly, and Cal Fire Chief Jim Mathias. Throughout this, we know you all have a lot of questions, so if you could please throw those in the chat. We are going to ask that you keep your lines muted throughout. We had over 800 people register tonight. We are north of 300 right now for people logging in, with another person coming on about every second or two. So please put those comments in the chat. We would also ask that you keep those comments relevant to the whole group. We know that everyone has questions about their specific community or how to handle their neighbor, but we would ask that you keep those relevant for the masses. So with that, we are gonna jump right in here. So some of you come into our monthly meetings regularly and are familiar with these reminders, and we're gonna take a little bit of a different approach as we go through those tonight. But first, take a peek at who we are and what we do. So the mission of the coalition is to promote fire safety through advocacy, education, and community involvement with other stakeholders interested in working towards stronger fire safety practices. So very specifically, the Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities, we are an unincorporated not-for-profit. We are entirely volunteer. There is a group of about half a dozen of us that represent the steering committee that puts these monthly events on, and rely on a bunch of community members, as those of you who are regulars know, to come and share best practices. We, again, have 0 staff, 0 budget. We thank the Nevada County Fire Safe Council for sharing their Zoom account with us for these monthly meetings, but we are different from them. But don't worry, they're here tonight too to give you an update here pretty shortly. Each month, there is a big emphasis on education. And tonight especially, as we are, please mute your lines. If you could, please mute your lines. Again, we are different from the council, but they're here tonight for an update. What we don't do as a group, so we don't lobby, we don't magically make homeowners insurance affordable, or bring infrastructure resources where none exist. So we do our best with what we can, but again, we are just a little not-for-profit. So moving on, getting into the monthly reminders. So I think no one is more sick of hearing me going through the same reminders as usual, so we're gonna take a different approach. We're gonna address some concerns related to these reminders of signing up for Code Red, know your zone, find your 5 emergency allies, scout your route, your evacuation route, and bookmark the Nevada County dashboard. So Code Red, someone put through online that they signed up and did not get any alerts during the fire or this morning, and very concerning. So let's talk about what Code Red does, the different types of Code Red, and what it doesn't do. So Paul Cummings, from the manager from the Office of Emergency Services, you with us?
Hey, Scott.
Hey, thanks for being here. So, you know, so many different Code Reds. I mean, on the left side of the screen, I have my, I got an email, bottom left, phone call, middle, text, right side, there's the app, Sort this out for us. What are the different types of code red and how do I get them?
Yes, thanks, Scott. So let's start with the opt-in account. This is where you sign up for code red. You can do this at readynevadacounty.org/emergency alerts, or you can call 211. And so this is for a managed account that works off of your address at your house. So if you're signed up for code red, you'll get a text message, phone call, and email, just like Scott showed. So to answer the question of why didn't I get a code red, well, I'll start with saying code red isn't a perfect system. It works really well a lot of the times, but that message has to travel through the normal phone infrastructure, which can sometimes get bogged down or busy, but they will reattempt a call if it was targeted for you. We only send code red messages to residents that are under an evacuation warning or an order. So if the zone that you live in was under a warning or an order, you should have gotten a code red message if you were signed up. We also have the code red app. So you can download this app to your phone. The app is based on your location. Code red, the managed account, is based on where you registered, so your home address. So the app is good for if I live in Penn Valley and I'm registered in Penn Valley at my house, but I am in Nevada City and I have the app and there's a fire and evacuation warnings and orders in Nevada City, the app, if it's set correctly, should notify you of those code red messages in that area. So it's based on proximity of your phone when you're using the app. The managed account based on your registered address. And then we also have another tool that we use, I won't go too far into. We use wireless emergency alerts, which is a FEMA system that actually hits every cell phone in a specific area with a pop-up message, similar to an Amber Alert. And so we amplified the messages that went out for the River Fire and the Bennett Fire, the code red orders, with this other system. So some of you may have seen this pop up. It might not have affected you, but the message was very clear. This is from the Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. These are the zones affected. Here's the website you need to go to get more information. So 3 systems: the WIA you don't sign up for, the app you can download, check your settings, and then the managed account that you can get from 211 or readynevadacounty.org. Hopefully that answers the first set of questions, Scott. Oh, you're muted, Scott.
So if I do have one follow-up question for you. So if I've signed up for one, do I leave it at that, or do you recommend we sign up for all of the above that can be signed up for?
Yeah, so you really only sign up for code red. That's where you register. The app is just something that you download and you would adjust the settings for your preferences. And then the wireless emergency alert, if you have a cell phone that's working and it's powered up and you're in proximity to an area that we're gonna send this message to, then you just receive it. You don't have to sign up for anything in that way. Separately is Zonehaven. You don't sign up for Zonehaven, you know your zone. And I don't want to steal Lieutenant Jakobs' thunder. He'll be talking about that a little later
on. Sounds good. Thanks so much. Appreciate your time and you being here tonight, Paul. So again, there's different ways that goes out, but the biggest thing is making sure you're signed up, and then just know that it comes to your area. And why there's only a select number of code reds that are sent out, and you might not get it for a fire, is the sheer volume that comes in. So during the month of August, this is just August, this is not all year or any period of time beyond that, there were 58 calls for service related to smoke and fire. And to be clear, that's not the entire unit. That's not the entire Yuba County, Nevada County, Placer County fire unit. That's not even the entire county. Actually excluded Truckee from this. So this is literally just West County. So sorry, Truckee. I don't get all the data for your side of the hill. There were 58 calls for service. Of those, 33 involved initial prep for evacuation warnings. What does that mean? It simply means maps might have been created behind the scenes. Law enforcement might have been notified. Evacuation team might have been put on ready. Of that, 4 led to a code red. So part of the reason you might be able to look outside your door and see smoke from across the county, yet there's no actual code red blowing up your phone, is that it's not pertaining to you. As Paul said, you will only get alerts when there is a warning or order and there is an actionable request for you to take. There is no warning for a warning. All right. For those of you, I would ask you to all to pull out your phones right now. If you're not signed up for Code Red, you can snap that QR code on the left. What that means is you can turn on your camera, act like you're just taking a picture of those funky cube shapes on the left, and it should take you to the site on the right. If you remember, as Paul mentioned, this is address specific. So if you have moved or anything has changed in your residence, you're going to want to get back in there and update that. For those of you who have signed up, please take a picture of that QR code on the left and send that out to others within your community. Ken, if I get you to mute your line, thank you. All right, so that's Code Red. Another reason there might be some confusion. So I believe I pulled this from Nextdoor. I don't recognize the formatting here, but the Nextdoor app says, is anyone else receiving conflicting Code Red alerts where one says mandatory evacuation, others, say something different, and we can address this. So you might get a message like this. This is one of those pushes that Paul said, the WIA was the acronym. And it says in the same message that there is an order to evacuate immediately, but there's also a shelter in place. Why that might be confusing is that the order is related to this GRS E280 and 222, while as the evacuation or the shelter in place is related to a different zone. So again, as Paul said, we're not going to steal the thunder from Lieutenant Jakobs, who is going to go to this in greater detail, but you do need to know your zone, and we encourage everyone in Nevada County to do just that. The other thing that I might have to is worth mentioning is that we're only speaking to Nevada County tonight, and I do recognize those of you in maybe like Wildwood and Smartsville probably track Yuba County, or at the River Fire, since it was on the Placer County border. Those of you in LOP and other areas to the south might have been looking for data from those other counties, and remember that we have no control over that and can't speak to those other regions. If you don't have Zonehaven yet, QR code here, and again, I'll let Lieutenant Jakobs go through the registration process, but please check it out if you don't already know your zone and have that written many different places. And then the last thing related to zones that fire, actually, the fire guys asked me to put out there was to address this question on the left and the top one on the right. So does anyone know the exact location, or is there a map of the fire itself versus the evacuation zones? And the answer to that is probably not the one we all want to hear, but the answer is no, there's really not, and there probably never will be. But there's a reason for that. And as you hear the debrief tonight with Chief Mathias, one of the things I hope you hear from him is just really how much experience they bring to the table as a response team and first responders with CAL FIRE. So a map of the fire doesn't necessarily give you all the data you need to know whether to evacuate or not, even if it does have wind data, because winds can change overnight. Terrain and slope factor into it. How things will change in night versus day. The density of fuels, as well as the population density of the area you live in, will all impact that communication between fire, law enforcement, and the emergency ops center, which would push out, any one of those three could push out these evacuation orders. So just knowing where the fire is at isn't necessarily the information that you should use to evacuate. At the same time, that picture taken on the left is a little terrifying. So I know where the exact location of the fire is. It's right in front of the person who took the picture. And if you're ever that close, if you can smell it, see it, and taste it, it's probably time to go. So one of the ways, Paul said earlier that neither, Zonehaven nor Code Red are perfect systems. And one of the ways in which they don't necessarily work is when things are moving so quickly that they get ahead of the first responders. So if you are this close to the fire, it's probably time to turn around and go. Not only that, it's probably time to, get to a safe area before you check in on other areas and check these other sources. So one of the things we also encourage is to find your 5, that is 5 emergency allies. So check the official sources, If your neighbor is telling you to go, maybe listen to them and pack it up and go. But what we ask that you don't do is please don't bog down 911. So 911 is used to report unreported emergencies. So if you think there's something 911 has not reported yet, give them a call. Do not call asking for information. Do not call where the fire is at. When you do that, or when you just post rumors on social media, it does slow things down. 911 can be overloaded. Dispatch can be overwhelmed. And every time someone posts a question or a comment of, I see smoke, or I smell smoke, I see fire, I heard there was something, that increases the number of calls. And sadly, in a lot of these big emergencies, those with real emergencies are bogged down. The 911 operators are bogged down, and we can't dispatch services to the person who's having a heart attack, completely unrelated to the fire or rumors of fire. So call 211 if you need info. Use any of the resources tonight. Tune in to KNCO, KVMR, UBNet, whatever you need to do to get the data you need. But this also applies to not checking in with your local fire station or the air attack base at the airport, who are getting increasingly overwhelmed with calls asking for information. Know that your local fire department is staffed by administrative staff who might be able to take your donation or give you an update on the annual budget, but they're not actual firefighters who know anything about the fire. So if you're wanting to create some redundancy, it shouldn't be in reaching out to those areas. It should be just finding local people. So build your buddy system and find your five. This guidebook, Find Your Five and Share Your Plan, is available at any fire station that you can stop by during non-emergency times, or at places like the fair and other areas you might see the Ready Nevada County table staffed. So don't rely on any one system. To sum up, sign up for Code Red, know your zone, find your five emergency allies, scout your route. So that means find your evacuation route now when there's clear skies and the sun's out. Don't wait for it to be dark out and the smoke billowing before you can find out if your vehicle can make that route or not. And then bookmark that Ready Nevada County dashboard. All right. And please, let's get back to using social media for what it's really meant for, which is to say ridiculous things like this. So with that, we're going to move on in our agenda and kick it over to, I believe we have, I saw Jamie Jones. Jamie, are you taking over for our update?
I'll take over for Steve Eubanks. I know he was originally going to report out on our red zone affair, much like the last few years, unforeseen circumstance. And this year, I think fire weather had a huge impact. And so the fundraising committee decided to postpone our fundraiser, our red zone affair that was set for September 11th. And I don't want to say cancel, but postpone. They have decided that they will resume this event in June. And hopefully we'll get some friendlier air quality and less interaction with fire season by hosting it in June. I know that there were also issues with the uptick in COVID cases that were a cause for concern, and we just wanted to be really responsible with the public who attended. So stay tuned for a new release date for the Red Zone Affair. I appreciate everybody's support. I know that it's been a long process, but they are working hard to bring the program back to you, or the event back to you. My second item is really, we got a big grant, everybody. The CAL FIRE grants went up, and the Forest Health Awards have come out, and we were a recipient of a $4.967 million grant. And this is going to be treating, it encompasses about 5,000 acres, but it prioritizes 1,800 acres of U.S. Forest Service land that's adjacent to communities like Cascade Shores, Greenhorn, Scotts Flat Pines, Town of Washington, the North San Juan Ridge. So there'll be fuel reduction as well as prescribed fire being led by our partners at the Forest Service. So we're really excited to have another large dollar grant award in the community or in the county. And we hope that we'll see more of that coming along the fire prevention side shortly. We're told that those should be awarded in the coming months. So if anybody has any questions about that grant offline, I'm happy to address those, or you can throw them in the chat. I don't know that I'll take up much more of your time than that, unless there's questions, but I know that you have a pretty packed agenda, Susan and Scott. Susan, I say you because you're what's popped up on my screen still. So I feel like I'm just talking to you tonight. Anybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jamie. All right, so we are pressing on in our agenda here. That was your update from Executive Director Jamie Jones from the Fire Safe Council. We're moving on to the River Fire debrief. So we have with us tonight from the Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Ray Kress, as well as from CAL FIRE, Chief Jim Mathias. So thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So to get this started, help us out. So for those of us in the public, we don't just have a clear view of how this works. So thanks to pop culture and some really bad movies, I think, I perhaps kind of assume that, all the fire guys are sitting around playing cards or sleeping in a room full of bunk beds. Bell goes off, you slide down a really cool pole, Dalmatian's waiting for you, and you go. But I have a feeling that might not exactly be reality. So Jim and Ray, could you just talk to us? Smoke is reported. What happens next?
Well, I think you have some movie scenes very correct in your description, but it doesn't really parallel reality very much. So I do have a little bit of a 4-slide PowerPoint to run through. Do you want me to try to do that real quick on the river in the
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, let me try to do the old share screen thing here.
We are going to ask again if we can kind of roll with the timeline and talk about how word gets out to the community and at what point you pull law enforcement in to begin evacuations. So if you could incorporate that, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll do my best. So I'm trying to get it to the share screen part. Hopefully that's the right one. Okay. Whoa. I do not know how to do that, apparently.
You had it for a second there if you want to give that a shot again.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Okay, did anything make it up on the screen that time?
Oh, yes, you're on.
Okay, it's really hard for me to tell because I have absolutely no idea what's showing, but I will go through it and we'll just see if it changes when we go through. So the river fire, let me talk about that real quickly. It started on August 4th at 1:59, contained on August 13th at 7 a.m., total of 2,619 acres. Basically burned on that map, if you can see it there, from in the south, the area of the Bear River campground there along the Bear River, all the way up to pretty much Mount Olive Road along Highway 174, and for the most part followed the drainage of the Bear River until it was able to find some other topography that it switched around there. All those statistics, you can read those there. I don't need to read them off to you, but let me just talk about the weather and what happened that day. We were in a very special condition. It hasn't been recorded before, so I'll talk about that. 99 degrees Fahrenheit, real hot day, 11% relative humidity, which is very low, and the winds were not very much. We didn't have very many winds that day. 3 to 4 miles out of the southwest, which is our normal diurnal pattern, which means that it blows one way in the morning and one way in the evening. So it was out of our normal trade wind, southwest, about 3 to 4, blowing up canyon. And where the fire started was the topography was a steep slope, and it basically faced the southwest, which means that's the part of the mountain that gets the most sun during the hottest part of the day. Now, here's the really different thing over that fire over any other fires that we've had. The energy release component was the highest it's ever been. And so that's really cool fire technology, Jim, but what does that mean? The energy release component is the amount of fuels averaged, how many BTUs they would create if they were burning. So fuels is grass, trees, brush, stuff like that. Got very hot, and it was, what that means is that we're in a severe drought and that any ember that goes up in the air is going to catch on fire. And that's what we dealt with that day. We also had no fire history in that area. So it started around the Bear River campground, basically in that area, and it burned along the Placer County side until an ember found its way over into Nevada County. burned pretty rapidly up through there, burned some of the most extreme fire behavior we've seen in that area. We've actually never had any fire history there, which means no major fires have burned in that area ever, which means that we have a bunch of fuels there. So burned up that canyon, burned towards Rollins Lake, basically in that general area. And how that fire develops and what's happening there, and some of the successes and the difficulties we had with that fire is that the successes were obviously that everybody pretty much knew each other. All the fire resources in the sheriff's department from both Nevada and Placer County all work together on a regular basis. So what happens is we'll see the way that the fire is burning, what direction it's burning, how quickly we think it's going to burn, and what the potential is. And we communicate that to our law enforcement partners who are able to design an evacuation area, get some folks into there and get the people out, and lets us concentrate less on moving people, let them do that. And then we're developing the fire and seeing what we can do to slow that down.
So Chief, where in the process does that happen?
That happens as early in the fire as humanly possible. I was at the fire within the first 5 to 7 minutes on the Placer County side. I just happened to have left our headquarters in Auburn and drove up to the Colfax to the Bear River campground. And by the time I arrived there, our local battalion chief was already there, and the sergeant from the sheriff's department was already there. So those two folks had already kind of parked side by side. And what we do, some of our earliest things that we do on a fire, because we could see the column. Did the picture change for you there? Did you have a new picture up with a large smoke column?
Yes.
Okay, so we weren't quite that big yet, but we could see the smoke column was developing and the fire was going to cause evacuations. So what we do is we estimate how quickly the fire is going to grow and what areas it's going to affect, knowing the wind, the topography, all that stuff. And then we're communicating with our aircraft, our air attack in the air. So the answer to your question is within the first 10 to 15 minutes, we start talking about evacuations. And then as soon as we can develop a box, how big we think the fire is going to get, we will develop the mandatory evacuations and the evacuation warnings in conjunction with the sheriff's department. We're right into unified command as quickly as possible. And I think that a pretty good plan was probably pushed out within the first hour. Nevada County had to drive all the way over to Placer County because that's where the command post was early on. So we had a patrol officer from Nevada County there, I want to say within half hour, 45 minutes. It certainly didn't take that long. And then that picture that you showed at the very start in the beginning there was off at Amber. So that setup, I want to say that was within the first hour of the fire, maybe hour and a half, that we were able to set up with the search and rescue and their folks. I think that they activated pretty quickly when we're out there, and that really is a good asset for us because they can come out and they have, not to toot your own horn there, Scott, but you guys have the technology that a lot of us don't. You can map it out a little bit better than us. So that's how that happened.
Nerds. We have nerds.
Well, I appreciate nerds then, because you do a lot of things that I can't. So that's the end cumulative result of the river fire, all the numbers that you see there. And really some of the difficulties that we had with that fire was the spotting out ahead of it. Now, with all the aircraft, you saw the drops that I talked about on the last slide or showed you there. Those are very successful with our tankers to basically build a box around the fire. So when you're the air tanker and you're flying in and you're looking at a column like that, you can't really drop out ahead of it. That's where we use our helicopters. So you see the fixed wing aircraft in the helicopters. Helicopters are really good at chasing spots out in front of that. As a matter of fact, we had a spot that was developing right at the base of the Rollins Lake Dam that had a helicopter not been able to get in there right next to Rollins Lake and dump water on that, we would have had a whole new problem. And all the folks out there in UBET probably would have been a little bit more concerned than they were. So our big concerns early on in this fire was one of the things that I talk about all the time, that Woodpecker Ravine in Alta Sierra. If the fire had gone that direction, if we would have had just a little bit of a wind shift, it would have been a huge, huge concern to me that the fire would have gone into there. But we were lucky to keep the wind that we got. And then by evening, then we were thinking about how are we going to get these resources back towards the heel of the fire? Because you send the resources to where the fire is burning the hottest to slow it down. We knew that we get the diurnal winds, which are going to push them back down canyon at night. And that was a push a little bit more towards Dog Bar Road, towards kind of Magnolia. Luckily, those lines held. As Scott was talking about earlier in the meeting about some of the experience that we have in there, I was born and raised in Nevada County. I've fought fire here pretty much all of my life. I was on the Placer County side just because I happened to be in a meeting in Auburn, so I was able to get to that side real quickly. The two people that we had running the fire side on the Nevada County side, actually the three people, if you want to include Chief Jerry Good from Higgins Fire, he was over there. He's been he worked out of that fire station out off of Dog Bar Road when he started in his fire service career. Our deputy chief for the Nevada Eva Placer unit, Jim Hudson, worked for Higgins Fire early in his career, and one of his first captains, what they would do is they would go train down off of Amber and talk about a big fire burning out of that area and how they would handle it, how they would handle evacuations, where they could put in dozer lines, where they would be successful with structure protection, how they would handle the aircrafts. And so luckily he was in Nevada County, which is an opposite. Normally he'd be over on the Placer County side and I'd be on the Nevada County side. But because of where we were at, it just really worked out very well. And then Landon Hack, the battalion chief who was running that side of the fire as well, has also been a lifelong resident in Nevada County. So we had the right people in the right position that day. And that's one of the main reasons we were very successful, plus the aircraft that we had. And I will tell you that our dozers did a Herculean effort to stop the fire where they did on the Nevada County side and have as much success as they did. And it was one of the most intense fires I've had. I had 3 different pieces of fire equipment in the middle of a burnover at the same time. Luckily, we only had 1 minor injury and only 2 pieces of apparatus were damaged, one pretty extensively. But I've never experienced 3 people all at once because the firefighters are trying to get in there and do structural protection. And as everybody knows, those canyons are very tight and those roads are even tighter. And so that's the difficulty we were dealing with in there. So in a nutshell, that's the river fire.
So Chief Mathias, we have several people who've asked if we have any idea how the fire started or what caused it.
Boy, I know that's a common question, and I don't want to give you a stock answer, but I have to give you that it's under investigation. And I know that sounds like a cop-out. It's really not. And I'm trying to be as delicate as I can with this. I would love to say this is exactly what started the fire. But you have to understand, if we say it was the butler in the kitchen with a candlestick that started the fire, and it was not. It was the maid in the bedroom with a knife. Then we've accused the wrong situation, person, or thing of starting that fire. And so we want to be sure with our information when we're doing the investigation that we're giving out the right information. What we do is we go through a process of what it wasn't. We know it wasn't lightning. We know it wasn't a train. We go through a process of elimination like that. And so our fire investigators are just not ready to release that information yet. And I don't even know. They haven't even told me. So I wish we could get that information out, but we just don't have it for sure. They're still processing evidence. And I know everybody wants to say, oh gosh, it must have been somebody that started the fire. We don't know that for sure. And until we know it for sure, we're not going to throw accusations at any one thing or any one entity. So I'm sorry about that answer, but that's the best I can do right now.
And then could you say something about how air assets are allocated?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. We had several major fires burning at that time, the Tamarack, the Dixie Fire, just a ton of other fires that were going at the same time, Monument, McFarland. So what we do is we have our two air tankers in Grass Valley and then our air attack. And hopefully they're on base and available, and we'll use them. And then we have a bunch of other aircraft out of McClellan and our other bases up and down the state. So what will happen is those resources will be assigned to a fire wherever they're needed. And then we keep some in reserve back in case there's another fire. So all new fires get priority. So the second, third, fourth day of the fire is already burning. It's already a large fire. What we try to do is we try to divert our aircraft that are our CAL FIRE air tankers and our CAL FIRE helicopters, and we try to keep them in reserve and put them on new fire starts so that the new fire starts don't get to be large fires. So that's the way that they're allocated. Is just the newer fires go first, but they go out of a regional coordination. Our North Ops up in Reading decides what the priority is for the aircrafts.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Chief. We need to kick it over to the other side of our emergency responders. Ray Kress, are you with us?
Sure am.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. So if we could go back to the beginning of this story. So same question that I started with Chief Mathias there. So fire goes up, fire department is on scene. They realize it's going to be big enough with a great enough rate of spread. And, you know, there's potential for evacuations and law enforcement need. Take us from there. What is your role in the process and that of the sheriff's office?
Yeah, let me start by saying we go to an awful lot of fires. As in this one went pretty big, pretty fast. But as in all fires, you'll see deputies arriving, sometimes lights and sirens as fast as they can get there, sometimes not. And behind the scene is we have a mapping program called SAR Topo that's running, where we live track our personnel, where the fire is going to be. We import our Zonehaven areas into there, so we know exactly what areas we're looking for, and we can have like a 30,000 feet view of the actual real world around this for when evacuations get called. Unfortunately, on the river fire, this one, like I said, went pretty big, pretty fast. We're all watching the fire cameras. We're all scanning fire traffic. We had 3 to 4 deputies running at code 3 as fast as they could to the amber area, because we all knew that was going to be the first area impacted when this went bad. And right there, we met up with Chief Landon Hack, who we work all too frequently with. Unfortunately, his brother is also a deputy with us, so we know each other very well. But yeah, so basically our communication starts in real time with them, watching the fire cameras on the fire traffic channel. Then usually within minutes, we have some type of unified command where we direct operations. We're using their information. They're using our live maps on our mapping, you know, the real points in the fire, what we can get for information, because information coming in on that first operational period on the fire is often very hectic. And you hear the fog of war, and that's certainly true when it's smoke of war, when you get these fires and the chaos. So immediately we knew we were over our head once we knew evacuations were going to go forth. And that is a huge area of concern with us, anything in the Bear River drainage and over into Woodpecker Ravine. We called for local mutual aid. We called resources from Grass Valley and Nevada City PD. Also, Nevada County Probation suited up and came out as fast as they could. Placer County normally was one of the first to help us out. However, they might have had their hands a little bit full on the Colfax side. So we had units en route from Yuba City and Yuba County Sheriff's Office, code 3, as fast as they could get here that night. And we started hooking people up with on the SAR Topo map so we could track real time. And we do that for safety and security of our personnel. A lot of times when we're back in the area, something like Taylor Crossing and stuff like that, where you really can't have a situational awareness, you can get trapped in there pretty quick. And that actually happened to a few of our guys who had to be ordered out, and they got out of that area right before it burned over. And yeah, as the fire progressed, we moved our branch from right there at Amber you saw that picture of our basically our hasty IC. back to our search and rescue headquarters at Station 91s once this developed and looked like it was going to be a sustained operation. That's us right there in the back of Rescue 3. That has a mobile IC, basically computers, laptops, screens. That really didn't work in the bright sun that well, but that's all, after a while we figured out we could just turn the trucks around and figure that and solve that one out. I think actually one of the firefighters mentioned that. And every once in a while, those guys have a good idea.
Easy, sir.
Oh no, like I said, with Chief Mathias and stuff, we see each other way too often, and usually the firefighter cop jokes are free flowing.
Yes, there's absolutely no offense taken. It's a good joke, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, we all understand firefighters don't want to be cops, and it's just the law of the land, I guess. And we end up obviously the river fire went on for us. Was operational periods, 12-hour operational periods. So we did 13 of them, and we had 13 mutual aid agencies come in and work in Nevada County for just on the Nevada County side alone, because obviously we have the Bear River in the middle of the river fire, and 174 was the direct access to the main IC in Placer County was compromised. So we had to set up a forward operating base to run law operations and planning.
What's IC? Sorry, what's IC?
Well, incident command or incident command post. Incident command is a person. Incident command post is an area of operation where you have your planning, logistics, and basically all your important decisions and just get made and put forth on that point. And that for Nevada County side, for the law side, got moved to Station 91, which is right across from the fairgrounds, which is search and rescue's home base of operation. There we have big room, big computer screens, and we have the facilities to intake people. Give you a quick list who showed up. West Sac PD, Folsom PD, Elk Grove PD, Roseville, Rockland PD, Sac Sheriff's Office, Sac PD, El Dorado County, Yuba County. Yeah, so it's a pretty impressive list who came to show up to help out in our neighborhoods. So if you live into those areas or into my area, as in zone 187 off the U-Bet, you might have saw some unfamiliar faces and unfamiliar cars. But they all dropped everything and came at a moment's notice, because none of us are big enough to support these operations when they happen. Just as with, we send personnel to the Dixie and Calder fire.
Scott, we have questions
Fantastic.
about the Bennett
Thanks.
fire. Will we have time for Jim to cover the Bennett fire?
We actually, GVPD was supposed to join Jim to debrief the Bennett fire. And I think just given the time, Susan, the rest of this meeting is yours, so I'll leave it to you. But I think maybe we push that to next month.
Okay.
Susan, Virginia, what do you think? The rest of the content is yours.
Where are we? 6:13. I think if Jim just keeps it to the overview of his 2 slides, I'd like to go ahead and do it now since it's fresh in people's mind. Jim, are you
Perfect.
able?
Sergeant Kress, I know we've got to get you off to another meeting. Do you got 5 minutes?
I sure do.
Awesome. Appreciate it. All right, go for it, Jim. Perfect. We can see it, but you're muted.
Okay, how about now?
Loud
Yes.
and clear. Awesome.
Okay, good. All right. So Bennett Fire start was August 25th at 3:33. It's contained on August 29th, total of 59 acres. You see the little map there. Basically, it started off of East Bennett Street, burned up to roughly Whispering Pines area in there. And some of the challenges we had with that fire are very much the same, the ones that we had with the river fire. It wasn't quite as hot. We didn't quite have as heavy of fuels in there. The good thing was there's not a lot of homes in there. The bad thing is what was out in front of it was a lot of industrial buildings, which is good because they have parking lots, but bad because we had some convalescent homes in Sierra Nevada Hospital in the city of Grass Valley out in front of it. So that brings out a whole new problem when we talk about evacuations in some of those facilities. So You'll see the list of resources there on that slide, what we had to deal with that day. And some of those pictures should be somewhat familiar to anybody that knows that area. That was where our incident command post was located. We had all those resources there. We looked at where the fire was going, which way it was headed. It was headed through some of those grassy areas. It hit a couple of log decks up kind of on the old mill site and was headed towards 3 or 4 convalescent hospitals and apartment buildings that are engineered when they're built to resist fire from the outside. We knew we didn't have enough time with a fast burning fire like that to stop it before it got there and put it out. Well, we hope to put it out, but we knew we didn't have a lot of time to evacuate the people out of those buildings. We don't have enough ambulances in Nevada County. We can't put everybody on a bus. A lot of those folks couldn't handle the smoke and the embers that were in the air. They already have a difficult time breathing inside the facility. So what we did is we parked some apparatus there and we told them to shelter in place. Same thing was here in Nevada Hospital. We have them control their air conditioners and we trust the engineering of the facility, and then we trust our tankers. So the air attack got over the fire early on, and he said, "What are your priorities, Jim?" And I told him very plainly that some of the most important things to me were those commercial complexes and the convalescent hospitals out in front of it. So if there's any way we could build a wall away from that and keep that part of the city safe, that was my priority. So they started kind of on the left side of the fire and built a wall along there. We had a couple of fires that had already started off of Idaho, Maryland. Luckily, we got some resources in there and slowed it down real rapidly. Same thing with the river fire. The sheriff's department and police department pulled in with our fire folks that were commanding the fire. We designed we designated an area that we thought that the fire was going to go. We pushed that out all the way to the mobile home village that's on the other side of Dorsey. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that's pretty much how that fire went. Once again, the air resources were the key to this fire. Not to discredit the dozers this time, because I really appreciate those folks, but I will tell you that our folks, local government, state, federal, everybody that had a fire engine came to that fire in the area, and they were aggressively fighting fire out in front of it. And just the aircraft that we had out of the Grass Valley Air Attack Base with the ability to reload real rapidly were less than 2 air miles, probably less than 1 air mile. And we were turning around tankers in 8 minutes. So that built a pretty good wall of retardant up. And then our helicopters, we had 4 of our helicopters that are assigned, 3 that are owned by CAL FIRE and 1 that's under contract, that were on that fire very early on. And so our new Black Hawk helicopters, we call them Firehawks, but they're basically the military Black Hawks turned into fire service, carry 1,000-gallon tanks underneath them, and they were very rapidly filling in just the speed of those new aircraft. We had 3 of the brand new ones and one of our other reserve helicopters on that. So very successful with that. In a nutshell, that was that fire as well. Any other questions?
Thank you. If we could hold the questions for you, Jim, on the Bennett fire and for Sheriff Ray until the end of our meeting, that would help us move along.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, back to you, Ray. Where did law enforcement and evacuation interface in this event, and what were some of your challenges and successes?
Scott, can we hold that part to the end of the meeting?
Nope, we've got to let Ray go.
Okay.
He's late for his 6:30.
Yeah, Scott, are you referring to Bennett or River Fire?
We're on Bennett.
Yeah, that was once the ICP finally got set. We had a great cooperation between us, Grass Valley, and fire. Again, it's the same people. We call it Groundhog Day. Same people, different fire. All directing evacuations. The big thing for us was not knowing the city of Grass Valley as far as the sheriff's office. So Grass Valley Police Department was instrumental in as far as directing the name of the facilities and what their primary concern areas were. And from that right away, we had 15 units from Placer within a half hour on mutual aid, who came up here from their sheriff's office, code 3, and started helping us evacuate. After we got Whispering Pines and Crown Point Circle done, we moved on to off of Sutton in those facilities there that came across. But that was certainly a hairy one for a few hours.
Yeah. And any big takeaways or anything else you'd like to share with the community from your perspective before we cut you loose here?
From our perspective, we got really lucky on that one. Big shout out to CAL FIRE. They stopped that in a really bad spot for us. All those commercial places off of Whispering Pines, we thought for sure we were going to go and creep all the way into Grass Valley. So we were expecting the worst, but we got a great surprise when it just stopped.
Nice. Well, cool. Sergeant Kress, thanks again for your time and being here today. We really appreciate it. Chief Mathias, we know you're always a big contributor to these monthly meetings. We really appreciate your time. Any last comments or anything you'd like to share about Ray's mustache before we move on in the agenda?
No, the folks from the sheriff's office are stupendous, and I agree. The Grass Valley Police contributed quite a bit too. So I don't have anything to make fun of him about. He's a great guy, but trust me, when we're off screen, we'll make fun of each other.
You can count on that.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you both for being here. All right, so we moving on here in our agenda. I am handing it off to Susan Rogers to kick off our monthly spotlight and the education event.
Well, thank you. And I think Virginia has a little introduction here, so I'll let her go with that and take it away, Virginia.
Okay. First of all, thanks for everybody who's participating tonight. It's our National Fire Protection Association educational event for the year. We appreciate everyone who's joined the meeting and who's going to continue to listen to the educational event. What we wanted to do, the coalition has spent since January, has spent these last months going over information that's vital for your community. We want you as a community leader, or if you're an interested neighbor, to share this information with your community, with your neighborhood, and with your friends. And we're going to show you where to find this information on our website. Susan Rogers has worked very hard and diligently and countless hours of putting together the website with Jeff Peach, and who's also worked very hard. And so we want to thank them for all their work that they've done to make this easy for you guys to find. So we are, as we said, taking questions and in the chat box, and Bob Wong and Jeff will be looking at those questions and then curating them, and we can ask questions. They will be asking questions to the first responders for answers at the end of the meeting. So with that, the first thing is we're asking Lieutenant Bob Jakobs with the Sheriff's Office to go over the Nevada County highlights in the Nevada County dashboard, so you know where to find information and you know how to find it fast and you know what's going on in and around your area. So Lieutenant Jakobs, are you here? Good, there you are. Thank you. Go ahead and take it over.
I'm here, Virginia. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, Lieutenant Jakobs with the Sheriff's Office. Appreciate the opportunity to be on tonight. I just want to say it's great to see so many folks on. I see we have over 400 people on. I've presented a few times now to this group, and it's wonderful to see all the community engagement that we have on here. I know time is short, and I've got some information that I want to talk to you guys about in regards to our Ready Nevada County dashboard. I don't want to go too fast that you don't get it, but I will say there's a ton of information here. So I'm definitely going to encourage folks to visit the Ready Nevada County dashboard after this meeting so that you can become intimately familiar with all the different resources that are on here. because it really is, it's a bunch of information in one spot. It's kind of a one-stop shop. So what is the Ready Nevada County Dashboard? It really is at its core a situational awareness tool. It was developed by OES and in conjunction with our GIS department here in the county. And it was released last summer of 2020, just before the Jones fire. In fact, it debuted during the Jones fire. It's the kind of tool where we're continually making improvements on it. If you're seeing it tonight for the first time, then you won't notice any differences. But if you used this last year during the Jones fire, you're going to notice that there's definitely some things that have changed on it. Again, we're continually making improvements, and we encourage feedback from the public. If there's something you'd like to see added or something you'd like to see tweaked, we certainly encourage that. This tool provides access to a lot of real-time information. That's the beauty of the tool. We're providing evacuation information, live fire webcam feeds, weather and air quality, just to name a few. But I want to start out with the tab at the top. So you'll notice that this dashboard is really a compilation of a number of different tabs. You've got evacuation incidents, River Fire Relief Fund, live webcams and fires. You have a number of different tabs here across the top that you can select to see all the different information within that tab. So the default tab that you're going to see when you first come to the Ready Nevada County Dashboard is the tab called Evacuation Incidents. The reason we make this tab default is because we feel this is the most critical information during an incident. This is where you're going to want to come to see what zones, if any, are being evacuated throughout the county. It's going to have all kinds of information. I'm going to kind of walk you through some of the information that's available here. So when you first come here, you're going to see a pop-up. It's not here because I already closed it out, but it's asking if you'll accept the cookies. That's because what we've done here is we've embedded the county's Zonehaven program directly into this dashboard. Last year, we had a county map that was used during the Jones fire. We actually drew evacuation zones on the fly. If you're familiar with Zonehaven and the Know Your Zone campaign, then you know that we've moved to pre-designated evacuation zones in Nevada County, and we ask that everybody knows their zone. Well, this is the website where those zones they live, essentially. We've embedded that directly here for ease of access. So you're going to see this when you come to this tab, but you're also going to see there's a pop-up window here on the left. And if you click that little arrow, it's going to pop it out. And if you want it to stay out, you can push the little push pin here at the top and it'll freeze this side pane. So this side pane is effectively it's your legend and a quick how-to on how to use this tab. There's information here about the different types of evacuation orders or warnings, shelter-in-place information. And it gives you a brief description on when law enforcement would use these types of orders and what those orders mean. So I definitely encourage you to come here, read that, understand the difference between an evacuation order and an evacuation warning. I'm going to close that back out so we can see the rest of the stuff here. So you're going to notice that on the left-hand side, there's a number of different boxes here that appear to be blank. That's because this dashboard is what we refer to as inactive at this point. There's no active incident in Nevada County that we're using this dashboard to follow. If there was, then you would see the name of the incident. So if it was a fire, you would see the name of the fire prominently displayed directly above the zone map. And then as the information comes in and it becomes available to us, you're going to see that we're going to populate these different boxes on the left-hand side. So for instance, if it's a wildfire and CAL FIRE is beginning to report out the number of acres that the fire has grown to, we will take that information from CAL FIRE and we'll directly embed that right here. Same with percentage containment, how many personnel have been assigned to the fire, and structural damage information. That information is coming directly from CAL FIRE. That way we know that it's vetted and it's accurate. If you continue on the right-hand side of the dashboard here, we've got what we call a widget, and this widget's running a couple of different features here. The first one that you see is the Nevada County OES Twitter feed. So if you're a Twitter user, you might recognize this. If you're not a Twitter user, then this is a great place to come to get those constant Twitter feeds, those pushes that OES sends out during emergencies. We don't just send them out during emergencies, we actually send them out continuously. You'll notice on the Twitter feed right now, we're sharing tweets from other agencies, other organizations, and that's pretty common for us. We like to share the information from our partner agencies. The very first one is a tweet there from Caltrans. You scroll down, you can see the history of all the tweets. We've got tweets that we've sent out ourselves. We've got one from Sierra Nevada Conservancy. If you continue to scroll down, there's some from CAL FIRE, as well as National Weather Service. It's a great location to get information, play by play, as we push that information out. At the bottom of that little feed is a couple of arrows. So if you click the arrow on the right, it's going to take you to the next portion of that widget. This is the Code Red widget. Okay, this is where you can come to see the last 5 Code Red messages that we've sent out to the public. So if you're a Code Red subscriber, but you're not in the area where we're sending those Code Reds, but you still want to know what those Code Reds are that are going out, this is a great place where you can come and you can actually listen to the message that we sent out by clicking the first blue button, or you can view the email message. You can even see the affected area. So this will actually show you a map of exactly where we sent that Code Red message to, in the event that you just want to kind of keep up to date, up to speed on what the incident is doing. The last portion of that widget is the Truckee Police Department and Truckee Fire Department widget. So if there was an incident on the east side of the county, you can follow that incident there as well. So now I want to direct your attention to the main part of this tab. And you'll notice that I clicked the little button here in the corner and it blew this screen up full size so that it makes it easier to see. So if you're on a PC and you want to blow that up, do that and it'll make that map large. Now, using a mouse, you can zoom in on this map. We get a lot of questions from folks about, well, I can't see what's on the map because it's too small. A lot of folks may not realize it's an interactive map. You can actually zoom in and out by using your mouse or your arrows on your keyboard. So this is Zonehaven, and what we're telling folks is to know their zone. That's the campaign, right? The Know Your Zone campaign. We need folks to know their evacuation zone before an incident. That way, during an incident, we can use a number of different tools to message the public about where those evacuations are occurring. Message systems like Code Red or the wireless emergency alerts, or trusted media sources such as Bennett and KNCO and KVMR, but you got to know that zone ahead of time. So how do you find out your zone? You can come either here to the dashboard, or you can go directly to Zonehaven's website at community.zonehaven.com. Once you're there, there's a search bar in the upper left-hand side. If you type in your address, and I'm just going to type in the address of the food center, government building up in Nevada City, start typing that in, and you notice that there's a drop-down, and it gives you options. The very first one is the one I want. That's 950 Maidu Avenue. That's the address to the Rood Center. So once I click that, it's going to zoom me in, and I can zoom in even farther once I'm there to see a little bit more of the zone. But you'll notice a couple of things happen here. It highlighted that zone in gray. This zone in particular is NEV-E305. So that's the evacuation zone that encompasses the Eric Rood Center, the jail, the Madeline Helling Library, Sugarloaf, a couple of locations around that. One of the other things you're going to notice is there's a little red pin that shows exactly where that's at. So that is the actual address for the Rood Center. And if you zoom in farther, you'll see that that pin is actually over top of that building. So if you were to do this for your residential address, if you zoom in far enough, you're going to see that that pin is generally over your property. It might even be over the top of your house. But most importantly, it's the zone number that you really need to commit to memory. So you can see that in a couple of different places. You can see it right here in the middle of that highlighted zone. You can also see it in the information box that pops up. Anytime you click any zone, this pop-up information box is going to show up. Within this information box is a ton of information. First and foremost, once again, your zone number, that NEV-E305. That's the most critical part. You want to capture that number. If you can memorize it, great. If you're not great with numbers, we encourage you to write it down. Put it on a piece of paper. I believe I saw Jeff Peach put in the thread there to put it at the back of your cell phone. We have magnets, refrigerator magnets that we've made available to the public that have an area on there where you can write your zone number and then slap that refrigerator magnet up on your fridge so that it's there all the time. We encourage people to save that number in their cell phones and have it readily available.
Bob, if you are you about ready to wrap up here? I think maybe at the end in the Q&A, we'll have you answer a question that some people ask is, why do there have to be zones instead of you just announcing the streets? And we could handle that at the end. Is there anything else you wanted to cover just very quickly before we move on?
I think the last thing I wanted to point out here at the bottom, and again, this was just, I saw this in the chat, evacuation information is at the bottom here. So if during an incident, these zones change colors, either to a warning or an order, and you're looking for information on where to find a shelter, this is where you're going to find that information as soon as it becomes available. Understand that it can take time to find a suitable location for a shelter and get that shelter location set up. So that information may not be available immediately once an incident starts, but shortly thereafter, we hope to get that information in and put that in here in Zonehaven available for you.
That's great. That's really helpful. We did get some questions about that, about the evacuation. So thank you for sharing the screen and giving that demonstration. Virginia, was there anything else you wanted to say before I pick up with the website?
No, I was just going to hand it over to you for the website and where to find information so the communities or neighbors, you know, sharing information with other neighbors can find this stuff.
So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're looking at the Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities website, which if you've never been here, and I know many members of the public probably have not, our address is NC, which stands for Nevada County Coalition FWC, Firewise Communities. And the Fire Safe Council hosts our website, and we very much appreciate them paying for the website costs that they have, or that we have. And I forgot to mention, I wanted to say tonight is the 4th anniversary of the beginning of this coalition. It was begun by Kent Reese from the Cascade Shores Firewise community, and Kent's here tonight. And if we were in a live situation, I would ask everybody to give Kent a big round of applause. The first meeting had maybe 20 or 25 people, and look how we've grown and how we've expanded what we can do for the community and for our Firewise community. So Kent, we very much appreciate that. And by the way, so back to our website, if you can't remember nccoalitionfwc.com or .org, just Google Coalition of Firewise Communities, maybe you add a Nevada County, and we're usually the first one that comes up, and then you'll get here. There is an About Us page, which is pretty standard. You can read about us. On the meeting agenda page, you can go to our Zoom archive, which will be right at the top. And if you ever want to see any back meetings, we have our meetings here. And let me just show you that Jeff Peach has spent a lot of time making it so that you can hit show more, and any of these will take you directly. So you are looking at that there. This will jump you directly to that person's piece of the meeting. So you don't have to drag through and look for things that may be not timely any longer or something. You can go straight to the speaker, and that will get you there. Those timestamps are very helpful, and we appreciate that. You may be in a Firewise community and not even know it. Let me pull my screen down here. We have a map. Here we go. This is connected from the Firewise community website. All of the pink are Firewise communities. You can see how pretty well covered we are, and you can see that map. Take a better look at it. It's as of February, and we'll be updating that soon. You can also hit, if you don't know you're in a Firewise community, hit that one, and it'll take you here, and you fill this in here. I'll just put in the name of my street here. Come on. Charlene Lane. And hope you don't get too dizzy. It zooms you right in. I'm gonna go the other way. And I am in the Glenwood, Maidu, Charlene, Firewise community. Here's Echo Ridge over here and this sort of thing. So you might find out, oh gee, I'm in a Firewise community and I didn't even know it. And if you discover that, then from this same page here, you would click this link to send a message to the Fire Safe Council. They will forward that to Pat Leach, who is their staff person, who's the Firewise community coordinator. And Pat can help you figure out how you can get in touch with the people who are the leaders of your neighborhood Firewise community. There's also information down here on how to become a Firewise community. And if you don't know who your fire department is, you can go to that and you'll get this map here showing you which fire department it is, Rough and Ready District, Penn City, Nevada City, Paradale, Chicago, all that sort of thing. That will tell you your fire department. But the big thing we are here tonight for is our education resources page, which is divided into about 5 sections. We have best of the best at the top, things for outside your house in defensible space, resources for your house itself, evacuation resources, and then links to the county. This is the handbook that they sent out to everybody in the entire county at the beginning of the year. If you can't find yours, you can see it here online. So we are going to look at a couple of these under best of the best. This is a really terrific 13-minute video where you can watch giant nozzles blowing embers at test houses. And this guy really helps you feel like, yes, I can do something that will make a difference for my house and could save my house even when everything else around is burnt. And it's only 13 minutes, so we really highly recommend that one. This is one I'm not going to show it because we're running a little short on time, but this is a 7-minute video from Fire Safe Marin, from Marin County. And it's about the new Zone 0. In the past, we used to talk about 0 to 30 feet, 30 to 70 feet, and then out to 100 feet. And now they have, the research has shown that really it's the first 5 feet. From the wall of your house out 5 feet is what could save you or take your house down. And so this is a really good 7-minute one on that. And I do want to say, relative to these two videos, these numbers are based on research and all kinds of, and you'll see it, especially in this one here. They didn't just make up 100 feet. They actually put test houses in 100 feet away from forests, and then they put the forest on fire, and it was like, yeah, okay, if you can keep the fire 100 feet away, then you'll avoid that radiant heat. Basically, it's all based on research. They don't just make it up. Here's your best information about home hardening. These are fairly technical and detailed, but if you don't want 40 pages of all the different things about your roof covering and gutters and all of that, you can get individual ones. Let's say you're thinking about coatings for the outside of your house or doing something under the eaves or your fencing. You can get individual 1 or 2 page components. Basically, it's this split up individually just by clicking on that website. I'm going to go down to the outside part here, and we are going to show you a 30-second video right here.
Good example of a property that's been cleared properly. All the grass has been cut back.
Is that sound coming through?
The trees have been limbed up to 6-8 feet at least. Very beautiful job. And then you see the next door neighbor has done none of that. And you can see how heavily wooded and how bad it would be if a fire happened to catch in this area. So this is the how not to. And then this one over here on the left is how to do it. What a beautiful, beautiful job they've done through here. It's amazing.
Okay, and we thank our former member Marty Main for that. This is a really good PowerPoint that Greg Cameron did for us last October on generators. If you don't have one yet and you're thinking of buying one, he talks about all the different kinds, gas, propane, multi-energy type generators, or the really expensive kind with the automatic turnover. So he runs through all of those, gives really good explanations and how to decide what kind to buy, how to run it safely. I'm going to move on to this section, protecting your dwelling. This is similar to the 13-minute one I showed you at the top from the University of Nevada at Reno. This one's interesting because it's got an interview with a fella over in, I think, Sparks or Carson City. And they actually show spots in his house where the embers fell and started to burn his house. And his house was saved because the firefighter showed up. But the fire itself never reached his house. And so he tells you the story of that and how the embers could have taken it down. And so that's really good. This is home hardening priorities and 12 slides, which basically take you to all the resources from these outfits with their information on home hardening. Down here, some lists and checklists. This is the checklist that everybody wants to get. It's got all the ways that you stay informed during an actual emergency, the radio stations, the internet places, the texting things, Twitter and all of that. There is always radio. Even if you don't have the other technology, you can listen to the radio. We've got a walking out the door checklist and important documents. I just want to show this really quick. This was put together by Valerie Bush. And even though you're thinking like, oh, I've got all of those other checklists, this is a really good one, which actually covers all of the important stuff that you want to make sure that you have saved, scanned and sent to the cloud or whatever it is. And you can take a look around at the rest of our website. We've got all kinds of things here, and I encourage you to go and look there. And the Zoom archive is either down here under more, or you can get to it again from the agenda to see videos and the speakers from our past meetings. And I'm going to turn it over to Virginia so that she can show you these great videos from our firefighters that all have to do with evacuation. And so take it away, Virginia.
Okay, thanks, Susan. There were some videos that we definitely want you to see, and I wanted to show them to you. It is from our firefighters. Can you guys see the video at this point?
It's coming in now.
Okay, so let's get out of who can share. Okay, so Battalion Chief with CAL FIRE, Matt Wallen, was actually in the Paradise Fire. His house survived. The houses down his street did not survive. There's things that he did to make sure that his house survived. And he also put together for you what you can do 6 to 12 hours before an evacuation if you have that time. We wanted to show this video to you real quickly. We have a condensed version for 5 minutes, and then there's a full length 15 minutes. So let me show you this video real quick.
So I was approached by Jeff to put together a 12 to 24 hour, what do I need to do to get my home prepared, my family out safely, and 20 minutes later when I'm driving down the road, I don't snap my fingers and go, oh, darn, I forgot to grab that. Number one is going to be heed the information given to you in the warning. Now is the time to take action to save the lives of you and your family. Number two is work the plan that you created. It's best, I would say, to have the checklists. Everybody likes checklists. Or personal observation. Do you see or smell smoke? Is it windy? Can you see the smoke column? What is the direction? Is it moving quickly toward you or away from you? Folks, the best thing you can do for learning what that fire is going to do is look at that smoke. When I looked at that smoke column early in the day, I went home and I started packing things. I did not need to be told to start evacuating. The point is, you're not thinking clearly sometimes unless you have those lists put together. When you're leaving, some things to do to shutting down and safeguarding your home is close all the doors. I left my front door open on accident. I caught it at the last minute. Move flammable furniture to the center of the room away from windows. Run over to your propane tank, turn the gas off. We like you to leave the electric on. I started moving railroad ties that I had for a gardening project away from the house. I took all of our lawn furniture and pulled it away from the house, just left it out in the middle of the yard. Vehicles. Vehicles ignite in wildfires. They, especially if they're on a burnable ground, grass, whatever. And if those are parked near your home, it's going to produce an immense amount of radiant heat and compromise the integrity of your home. Kind of common sense. Look for anything that's going to burn. It's going to be very windy. The ember cast, it's going to be like a shower of orange. Don't leave your sprinklers on. So if you're in we need all the water we can to fight the fire. Maybe pre-treat your house ahead of time during the day with wetting plants around your home down very well. Get them nice and saturated, but not as the fire's getting there. We're going to need that water. Leave exterior lights on, a good call, as you leave so we can see that there is a house there. Have a ladder ready. Leave them on the ground. We know how to put up a ladder, and we'd like to use yours because it saves time that we don't have to use the one on the engine. If you have water sources, sign them. Put signs that I have a water tank out back. Leave a note before you go if you can, because we might not know that's there. Leave hoses out on hose bibs. Patrol your property and monitor the fire situation. Don't wait for an evacuation order if you feel threatened. Check on your neighbors, make sure they are all preparing to leave. Locate your pets, keep them nearby. This should be done way early. Point is, you're not thinking clearly sometimes unless you have those lists put together.
Okay.
I'm Daniel Reliant from the Cal Fire Information Center with a fire situation report for Tuesday, September.
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you is this is from Reilly. He's retired from Sacramento Metro Fire Command, and it's about what to wear and what supplies to take when you evacuate.
If you were to step outside in the winter, how would you dress for the winter? You'd wear a coat, jacket, boots, all that. Similar thing with fire, because it's always a guy in a garden hose with sandals and a t-shirt, shorts on that's going to defend his home. And meanwhile, the fire is approaching rapidly through the chaparral. Wildfire evacuation, there's obviously multiple threats. So this picture here I chose because it's an excellent shot of vehicles driving through an ember stream and a fire that's obviously moving through the area as they're evacuating or as they're trying to go from one point to another. And their safety is obviously at risk here. The main thing is that your ability to stay calm, to think clearly, be able to react. When you can't breathe, see clearly, you're getting embers in your eyes, you're looking for temporary safety refuge. And if you have to leave your vehicle or your residence and the fire is moving rapidly through the area you're in, during evacuation, you can encounter these conditions and threats are dangerous to life and health. Headwear. Have a hat. And I show a leather hat in the middle because leather is what? It's pretty much flame resistant. It'll last. It's also usually a little stiffer. It won't crush down on a breeze. I'm showing other hats or examples of them that have neck protection, which is made for sun, right? And some of these hats are probably synthetic, which you don't want. Embers are going to get in your collar. So have some way of protecting your head and neck. Obviously, the best protection is going to be a helmet of some type. If you have a construction helmet, the reason I show goggles is like it's something that's, if it's padded and enclosed, smoke's not going to get in your eyes. Being able to see is an important thing. The other is respiratory protection. And we all know everybody probably has some kind of mask now, whether it's an N95 mask or other type, or the one you see the Wallen firefighters wearing, the like the Rest Pro or the Bandit. Any pair of gloves will do, that's leather being the best. The wrist cover, because you want some protection if your sleeves are open up or short, you don't have time to button them or something. Upper body protection, long sleeve shirt. Heavy cotton's good, it will burn, but it's comfortable. It's wear 2 layers. Have a t-shirt on or undergarment and try to layer up because it's the air layers between the garments that keep the heat off your skin. Leather's very good. Wool is inherently flame resistant. Avoid the synthetics. Lower body pants, long legged pants, obviously. Footwear, something sturdy. No sandals. Your safest place when you're in a burn area or you're in a wildfire is in the black. You want to move towards what's already burned and stay out of the green area because that's where you're going to get caught. So if you don't have footwear that allows you to do that, you're probably going to get hurt feet. The safety, visibility, alerting, warning devices, a whistle to alert somebody to your location. If it's smoky or dark, it's night, a flashlight so you can see and aim towards it. An air horn, even a small air horn. That's another thing with a hand light. You can see and you can be safe. I'm going to go ahead and share screen.
Oops, I just turned him off. Sorry about that, Chris. Just cut you off. We're going to move on to safety during an evacuation and what to do if you're trapped. This presentation is done by Cal Fire Chief Jim Mathias.
And Virginia, is this the last one before we take questions and answers?
This is the last one before we go over the questions and answers.
We're going to talk about safety during an evacuation and kind of see what it looks like after that fire has burned over an area and it's continuing down and away from you. If you can get to this kind of an area after the fire is burned through, it's fairly safe to be there. The warning is always better than the consequences. Give your family the best chance to survive a wildfire by evacuating early. That's kind of what it looks like when the fire's right on top of you and you fail to get out in time. You don't need to wait for somebody to tell you to get out. If you're in that kind of a situation, you don't want to be in the same panic that these folks are in to get into their car and get out of the area. If you're trapped in your car, you're going to want to drive your road warrior car that you're most familiar with, that's got fuel, that's ready to go. Please don't take your RV and your trailer. Remember that your car will protect you. Yes, your car's flammable. Yes, if it catches on fire, it's not a safe place to be. But trust me, you're way better in a running vehicle than you are standing outside with those embers hitting you. Try to get to an area that's clear of vegetation. Never park blocking the roadway. So get to a wide spot if you can, pull off the side of the road, close all the vehicles and window vents. If your vehicle is operational, look for escape opportunities. So be patient, stay in your car, don't abandon it if it's still running and you're able to move. If your car is disabled, cover yourself with a wool blanket, jacket, cotton, something that's non-flammable. Stay as low as you can. Lie on the vehicle floor. Keep your lights on, your emergency flashers on. Don't forget to use your cell phone. Look for an area that's free of vegetation or it has the least vegetation available. Look for things that can shield you from heat, including like buildings, large rocks, fences, and depressions. Remember, if winter water runs down it, summer fire runs up it. Sometimes these little movements, 10 feet, can be the difference between life and death. You may get burned, you may have a better chance of living if you can just make those 10 to 20 foot movements away from where that blast furnace effect is happening. If you can't get away from it, lay face down, cover up your body with anything that's not flammable, protect your airway. Most people that die in fire die from breathing in carbon monoxide or superheated gases. If you're trapped in your home is usually a very safe place for you to weather the fire. Stay calm. Keep all your family together inside of the house. Call 911, again, landline, cell phone. Fill the sinks and the tubs with any cold water or any water that you can get a hold of. Put on a couple, 3 layers of cotton or wool clothing. Have some kind of eye protection. Keep the doors and the windows closed but unlocked in your house so we can get to you more rapidly and get you out, and keep the lights on. Stay inside your house until the fire passes. Stay away from the walls, stay on the interior of your home. Once you're out of the area in your car, this is very, very important, folks. Don't stop to slap each other high fives and take the pictures of the house.
So glad I'm listening to this.
Because there's another 5,000 cars behind you that also want to get out. Folks, thanks for your time and thanks for my job. That's it for me.
Okay, that's it for the videos that we wanted to show you. We wanted to show you the most important that we thought that you would need right now during the times of high fires. I'd like to open it up to Bob Long and also Jeff Peach. They've been curating the questions that have been going on in the chat, and then you guys can, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can go ahead and ask the first responders for answers to these questions.
Really, most of the questions have been answered as the as we go along, either on the chat or you've covered the one thing that was asked. It was about covering vents. How do you make that happen? Do we hire a handyman, or is it really simple that anyone can do it?
I can sort of answer that. There is on the Education Resources site in the section about your house protecting your dwelling. There's a PDF there that I had presented to the coalition of how I put 1/8 inch screening on my own vents, on my foundation vents. And I did have to pay somebody to go into the attic to do it on the gable vents. But it may not be a job that you can do yourself, but if you can find somebody to do it, the PowerPoint or just the 1-page summary gives a lot of information on how you buy this stuff at the store, how it's sold. It's called hardware cloth. It's not actually called screen when you buy it at the hardware store. It's called hardware cloth, but it's 1/8 inch screen, and it comes in a 3-inch roll, or I mean, pardon me, a 3-foot roll, a 4-foot roll, different prices at different places. And all of that detail is there on, it's called How I Changed My House Vents to 1/8 inch Screen. And it's under the Your House Protecting Your Dwelling section on the Education Resources page of our website.
That's really it.
That's good.
You think most everything else has been covered?
It's either, yeah, it was either answered in the chat or it was covered by the speakers.
Okay. There was one handout that I forgot to mention, or not a handout, it's a PDF on the website, and it's called Leaving Early, How to Make That Decision More Easily. And it's underneath where where Virginia actually clicked to show all of those videos. But basically, you know, after the Bennett fire, pardon me, after the river fire, there was a community hall meeting, and I tuned into that. And the last question from somebody in the audience asked, is there a reason why we should leave during an evacuation warning when we don't yet have an evacuation order? And the fellow from CAL FIRE came to the mic and he gave a very good answer about what an evacuation warning means. But what we always say is leave early, because if you wait, I mean, I just wanted to speak through the microphone to this woman, except I was just watching it on my screen, is that if you wait until you get an evacuation order, then everybody else is also leaving at the same time you are. And they are going to be on the same roads, trying to get down the same place, trying to get on the same on-ramps to the freeway, to 49 or to 20. And you're going to be in a jam like they were showing on TV at Lake Tahoe, where people sat there for 2 hours before they were able to move. And they were lucky that the fire was not right on top of them. But the whole point is, my family, when we get a warning, if we're in a zone that's getting a warning, we are out of here. I am running around, you know, with my list that I've got a list on the back of every room in my house that I've customized from all of these checklists about what do I need to do in each room. If there's those cellular shades, those thin cellular shades, you want those all the way up, because radiant heat coming through the glass could make those burst on fire and then put the inside of your house on fire. Some of my rooms have metal Venetian blinds. You want those all the way down and closed, because that'll keep radiant heat from coming into the room. Anyway, I have a checklist, masking tape to the back of every door in the room in the house. And we leave when there's a warning, because we don't want to be stuck in all of that traffic when everybody in your zone gets an order. It's a personal decision, but there you go. And like I say, the thing on the website gives you an idea of like how to make that decision more easily that you need to go.
So there's a question about what is a house vent. So if you look around the base of your house, the crawl space, and look up in the soffits, the eaves, you will find vents. They're either round holes or in some cases, square openings. In other cases, if you have enclosed soffits, you'll find a row of holes along the edge of the material covering the soffit. Right. Oh, there, Susan's got it. So this is what we're talking about covering. Somebody asked about putting aluminum foil around cardboard to cover the
kind of what we did.
That aluminum foil, aluminum has an extremely low melting point, and a fire will simply mow right through it. So the best thing is a 1/8 inch screen, or to simply cover the entire the vent with plywood, but do the screen first, obviously, and if you have time you can cover the vent, but not with cardboard and aluminum foil.
Okay, so Bob, I've been wrestling with the same issue. We do have 1/8 inch vents at our house, and so I cut some plywood, because I heard some CAL FIRE guy talking once about get those vents covered, you know, it's really important. So I cut a piece of plywood and I screwed it over the vent. And then I was worried that I kind of made new nooks and crannies. behind the plywood for embers to fall into. So then Rick Cameron came out, he does a lot of DSAVs up here, and he says, really the best thing is to crawl under there and, put a second layer of 1/8" screening or something behind, I just worry that if you're tacking something on the front, you might be making another little spot for an ember to drop into. So I don't really have an answer, I'm wrestling with it, So that's my 2 cents.
We have another question about what resources are there for disabled or elderly people?
I can help answer that. I've been doing a monthly newsletter for Gold Country Senior Services that goes out to their Meals on Wheels clients. And so calling 211 connecting point is the best thing to do for people who have special needs, elderly and senior citizens. When you dial 211, there's also a longer number with it that I don't have off the top of my head, but if you have a landline, you can dial 211, and that connects you to 211 Community Connecting Point, which is funded by the county. And they actually have people who answer the phone 24/7, and they know how to direct people with special needs, elderly senior citizens, to the resources they need to figure out how to get help. It's really the best way to go.
So another question was asked about blocking vents, because they're obviously there to create airflow, prevent mold. The 1/8" screen will not prevent the airflow that is necessary to keep keep the black mold and other issues like that at bay. Another question was asked about evacuation signs and the danger of hanging an evacuation sign on your address post notifying burglars that you're not there and the house is ready to be robbed. I think the answer to that is the area is also flooded with fire personnel and law enforcement, and the statistics, I believe, would show that burglaries typically do not happen during an evacuation. It is a felony offense if you break into a house during an evacuation. And social media simply exacerbates the lone incident that happened somewhere.
Bob, I'm going to mention.
And I would just echo, if I could just echo what Sergeant Kress put out earlier, that like the amount of law enforcement traffic goes up by leaps and bounds. So every day and night during river fire, the geographic area that fire and number of residents evacuated was not that big in the big scheme of things, but in addition to local resources, every day a dozen people came in from Sacramento PD as well as Sacramento County Sheriff's Office to support our ongoing efforts from our law enforcement. And honestly, the evacuation tag saves lives. So you really have to choose between your stuff and your neighbors' lives. And that is legitimately what we're talking about. And no, realistically, if you drive down a road when the power is out and it's been evacuated, every house is evacuated. So if you're a crook, you really don't need a yellow tag to determine that the house is completely vacant when you've been scoping it out for a few hours and seen no activity, no lights, no movement, no candles, no nothing.
Thank you, Scott. I wanted to say one more thing on the vents. The 1/8" is enough to provide air, but you don't want to use aluminum window screen. And because aluminum window screening is too fine, it'll collect dust. Dust will clog up the teeny weeny little holes in it, and then you could get a moisture problem or a mold problem. So 1/8" is fine. Just don't go any finer than that.
That's it, Susan.
Okay, Virginia, do you want to wrap up and close it out?
Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening for the last hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. We really appreciate your time, your involvement. Please share this information with your friends, your family, your neighbors, your communities, so to help them understand how to be firewise and create a safer environment for everyone around us.
And the recording should be on our website in the archive probably by tomorrow night.
Right, so we will have this recorded so you can share it with your neighbors and your community. And then the next meeting again is it's the first Tuesday of the month. It's on October 5th, and it's about homeowners insurance. At this point, we're going to go ahead and end the meeting. We'll stop recording. But we do keep just the meeting open in case somebody wants to talk or has a different question. But thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance and have a great month. And we'll see you next time on October 5th. Thank you.
Be careful out there.